It seems to me that this new TrailSport version of the Honda CR-V is having a bit of an identity crisis. And to be clear, there is nothing wrong with combining a hybrid powertrain with a rugged-looking package like this one, even if those two characteristics are sort of at odds. But the bigger problem here is that Honda didn't deliver a rugged enough version of the CR-V, which means this one burns more gas than the rest of the hybrid lineup, only without the sort of reward you might be expecting in return. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Look, I am all for automakers absolutely flooding the market with hybrids. And if anything, I wish Honda actually went the same route as Toyota with the 2026 RAV4 that's on its way and made it hybrid only, because with that crossover, you can get a conventional hybrid or a plug-in, but no more gas engine on its own. Whereas with the CR-V, you can still get a couple gas versions and then this hybrid in something like 4 different trims. The other thing I gotta say is no, Honda didn't overpromise with this TrailSport version of the CR-V the way it did with the Passport, which I reviewed not too long ago and which you can find on the channel. You can also find it on autotrader.ca/editorial, my full written review of that thing. Anyways, that is an important qualifier. I'll also say, I have no problem if you want to drive a vehicle that at least looks rugged, but here is the issue. It starts with these all-terrain tires. And here's the issue, just take a look. The treads, they aren't even that aggressive, yet these things are single-handedly responsible for this thing burning more gas than it probably should. And this isn't just me making an arbitrary claim. It is backed up by Honda's own numbers, because this TrailSport, it doesn't have any unique suspension tuning. There isn't even a drive mode for off-road conditions like you get with the Passport TrailSport. Yet this thing burns an average of 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers combined, compared to 6.4 for the rest of the hybrid lineup. The same goes with the city and highway numbers. They're both a third of a liter more than in the rest of the CR-V hybrids. No, that isn't a ton of gas, but yes, it does matter in a hybrid vehicle. The whole point of picking a hybrid is to burn less gas, and that's why I said earlier, if this thing would have been hybrid only, then it wouldn't matter as much, or if Honda would have gone further to differentiate this TrailSport version from the rest of the lineup, and it didn't. And if you take a look at something like the Subaru Outback, there's a wilderness version, and it burns more gas than the rest of the turbocharged lineup, but there is a reward there. It is inherently more capable. It rides higher. It's got different drive modes. It looks different. It's got all kinds of stuff that sets it apart, and that is simply not the case here, and it makes that extra gas this thing burns a big problem in my books. Now, I have been doing better than an official rating of 6.7 so far this week, but only barely so. And that also tells me that the rest of the lineup can probably do even better than its rated number. I have this thing in eco mode, which typically with Hondas does help quite a bit. So I feel like the potential for the rest of the lineup is even higher. And that means that those versions would burn even less gas than this thing. Again, that's probably my biggest criticism, that and the price, because this version I'm driving is the second hybrid in the lineup. There is a Sport that sits just below it, but this thing is about 49 grand before tax for what feels like a pretty basic trim. Yeah, it's got some nice features like heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, this sunroof if you're into that sort of thing. There's an 8-speaker stereo instead of the 6-speaker I think is the base unit. But the fabric on the seats, it really isn't all that nice. There's really nothing in here that's super showy that tells you where all that money is going aside from the hybrid powertrain. Yeah, there's wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but this infotainment system is so basic. This 9-inch screen, kind of small by today's standards. The other issue is there is absolutely nothing to it aside from those smartphone connections or AM and FM radio. There isn't even satellite radio because Honda is moving away from that. It's all just very strange. I really can't tell you where that money is going. And let me put it another way. Yes, there is that new version of the RAV4 Hybrid that's on its way, but as of today, when I'm recording this, we don't know the price. But if you take a look at the 2025 RAV4 Hybrid, the most expensive version is about $150 more than this thing that I am driving. Keep that in mind. This is the second trim in the hybrid lineup, and it's virtually the same price as the most expensive RAV4 Hybrid. I just don't get it. Again, this is an across-the-board issue with Honda. All its vehicles have become very expensive, but this one is just another, and I cannot figure it out. Now, look, aside from that stuff, of course, there are plenty of good reasons people love the Honda CR-V. They've existed for generations and they continue on to this day. And a big one for me is that this has just about everything you need and nothing you don't. There's a good amount of space in the cabin and the cargo area. Now, I will say, I do find this second row seems to sit a little higher than it needs to, although I do have enough headroom to fit back there without any issues. And same up here with this sunroof, there's a good amount of space, and that's something that I struggle with in the Toyota RAV4. So if you are on the tall side, note that this is probably the better pick. Tons of legroom and lots of cargo room. A couple issues there though. The first one, well, there's no spare. There's a little inflator kit. On the bright side, Honda was able to lower the cargo floor just a little bit, but there's no more underfloor storage. You can't lift that panel at all. And the other thing is, when you fold the back seats, they no longer lay flat with the rest of the load floor. There's that little hump there with the seats folded. Now there's a little more than 1,000 liters, I think, with the rear seats upright, and then something like, I don't know, 2,000 with them folded. It is plenty of space, but it's just not optimized, at least in my opinion, because it's great to have that little bit of extra space when the rear seats are upright, but then when they're folded, the whole point is to make it as useful as possible. And with that hump where the seats fold, well, that's just not the case. Now, in terms of the drive experience with this hybrid powertrain in particular, you can really feel the electric side of it kick in when you get your foot down, and it makes passing a breeze. I really do like it. Same with if you have it in sport mode. There are a few different settings that you can choose from. Again, they're standard across the hybrid lineup. There's sport, normal, eco, and then a snow setting. But if you have it in sport, you can really feel the electrified torque kind of fill in for what this 2-liter 4-cylinder that runs on the Atkinson cycle lacks on its own. Because don't forget, that cycle, it prioritizes efficiency over power. So having that electric side of the powertrain kick in and really give you that low end torque, well, it helps when you get your foot down. Yeah, this thing has a CVT, so it gets a little bit buzzy, but I don't mind it, especially for the pickup you get with a heavy foot applied to the throttle. Now, of course, just like with any hybrid, this is all about relaxed driving, and that is another area that the CR-V excels. I wouldn't say this thing is totally devoid of personality, but it's also not exciting. I think the steering feel is actually pretty good. Responsiveness is decent. Again, it's not about fun, it's just about knowing what's happening. I think that matters more than anything else, that level of engagement, so you are aware of what the vehicle is doing when you're doing it with steering input, with braking, all of that stuff. I also want to point out, this is one of the very few hybrids that has adjustable regenerative braking, which is kind of cool. Now, if you pull this paddle on the left side of the steering wheel, it gives you sort of on-demand regen. There are 4 different levels that you can choose between, but really, you want to drop it into B range. So when you drop the gear selector into this B setting, that really ratchets up the regen, and it also locks it in, and then you can use the paddles to adjust how much braking force you want to use. Really great for around town, not so good on the highway because it is more aggressive. It's all about saving all of that kinetic energy, putting it into the battery, and that's how you get those efficiency numbers to drop even lower, and that's how I've got it below that 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers I talked about earlier. So it is kind of cool, but even if you don't use that setting, you can just set it and forget it, leave it in drive, let the powertrain do its thing, and it's going to be reasonably efficient on its own. And even though I harped on this CR-V TrailSport for being kind of basic when it comes to amenities, I've got to give Honda credit for loading this thing with all sorts of advanced safety features. Of course, you've got lane departure warning and keep assistance, forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, and adaptive cruise control. Just about everything you could want, and it all works as it should. There is one issue though, and it's been something that's plagued Honda's products for a long time, and it persists to this day. The issue is that forward collision warning. It is just notoriously sensitive. It has been for years, and that is the case here. But on the bright side, this one doesn't beep, it just flashes in the instrument display, so it isn't quite as annoying in everyday traffic. To recap, I like how spacious the Honda CR-V is, as well as how straightforward it is, and the extra passing power you get with this hybrid setup. I don't like how expensive it is, especially for this TrailSport trim, not to mention how basic it feels in terms of features, and how it isn't as efficient as the rest of the hybrid lineup. Just to reiterate, my criticisms of the CR-V TrailSport have nothing to do with you as a potential buyer and everything to do with Honda. Because there's nothing wrong with wanting a rugged-looking crossover, but there is something wrong with an automaker selling one that's a bit half-baked in terms of capability, especially considering the penalty it comes with at the pumps. And then the other issue is the asking price, which I think is about $5,000 too much here in Canada, considering the amenities it comes with. Now, that doesn't mean you should take this CR-V off your shopping list, and its rock-solid reputation for reliability alone is worth a look. Just be sure to check out your other options too.